The classroom smelled faintly of chalk and polished floors. Jasmine's hand hovered over her notebook, trembling. The principal's gaze sliced through the air like a knife. "Jasmine, is this your best work?" the principal snapped, voice tight with disdain. The other students shuffled in their seats, eyes darting between her and the authority figure. A pen clattered to the floor, echoing like a gunshot. Jasmine swallowed. I followed the instructions," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Followed the instructions?" the principal repeated, leaning over her desk. "This is amateur. Pathetic. Honestly, I don't know why you even bother showing up." Her cheeks burned. A laugh snickered from the back of the room, an eruption of embarrassment she hadn't invited. Jasmine gripped her notebook tighter. Every muscle in her body tensed. She wanted to vanish, to disappear into the cracked linoleum under her chair. "You think that's enough to meet our standards?" The principal's words dropped like stones. Silence settled over the class. Her stomach twisted. The room felt smaller, every eye on her, every whisper a verdict. The classroom door creaked. Jasmine's heart jumped. The assistant principal stepped in, but not to defend her. Instead, he glanced at the principal and nodded, silently approving the humiliation. She looked down at her notes, fingers trembling. The world around her felt like a stage, and she was the punchline. Then the door opened again, wider this time. A tall figure stood there, calm, commanding, with an authority that even the principal didn't question. Jasmine froze. Her mother's eyes locked onto the principal's. The room seemed to exhale, tension thick like fog. "You know who I am, don't you?" the mother said, voice soft but unyielding. The principal blinked. Hesitated. His usual confidence wavered for the first time. Jasmine's chest raced. The air held a dangerous pause. And then silence. The bell rang. Jasmine slid into her seat, careful to avoid the creaking floorboards. Her notebook rested on the desk like fragile armor. The principal's eyes locked on her. He moved down the aisle, shoes clicking against the polished tile. Each step sounded like a countdown. "Jasmine," he said, sharp, almost dripping with disdain. "Is this really your work?" She held up her notebook. "Yes. Stop." He leaned closer, voice low, cutting. "Stop pretending this is acceptable. Do you even take this seriously?" Her classmates exchanged glances. A couple stifled snickers. One kid's pencil rolled across the floor. Everyone froze. I tried," Jasmine whispered. Her fingers trembled. She gripped the edge of the desk. "Tried?" the principal snapped. "This is pathetic. Amateur. I don't know why you even bother." A sharp intake of breath from someone at the back made her jump. Her stomach twisted. The humiliation pooled, heavy and suffocating. Jasmine's eyes darted around. Teachers and assistants glanced up from their papers. None intervened. One nodded subtly at the principal, a silent seal of approval. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "You are more than this." The assistant principal's footsteps approached. She hoped for rescue, for some sign of fairness. But he only glanced at the principal, approving the display. "Is that clear?" the principal added, tilting his head. "Yes," Jasmine breathed. Her heart thumped violently. The room was too small. Every whisper, every eye, felt like it was pushing her down. The door opened. Jasmine's pulse jumped. She expected another teacher, or maybe a student. Her mother stood there. Tall, poised, eyes calm but hard. "You know who I am, don't you?" she said softly. But the tone was final, unyielding. The principal blinked, hesitated. For the first time, his voice faltered. Students held their breath. The room hung in suspended silence. Jasmine clutched her notebook, chest tight. Every muscle tensed. The assistant principal fidgeted. A bead of sweat traced down his temple. The other students leaned slightly forward, whispering. Her mother's gaze didn't waver. Calm authority radiated off her like a shield. "Do you understand the consequences of your actions?" her mother added, voice low but sharp. The principal's jaw tightened. His usual confidence cracked under her scrutiny. Jasmine's heartbeat filled her ears. Time slowed. The room waited. Every eye on her, on him, on her mother. The next word the principal spoke would decide everything. The hallway buzzed with muted tension. Students leaned against lockers, murmuring, glances flicking toward Jasmine. She kept her head down, backpack tight against her chest, as if it could shield her from every whispered judgment. "Did you see what the principal said?" a girl hissed, peering over her notebook. Yeah, I can't believe it, another whispered. He made her feel like nothing. Jasmine's stomach twisted. Every word felt like a pinprick, tiny cuts stacking into a wound she couldn't show. She moved past clusters of students, each step measured. Some smirked, others avoided her gaze entirely. She wanted to run, to vanish behind a locker or disappear into thin air. Then she heard it, a soft laugh mocking from near the stairwell. Guess some people are just expendable, a boy muttered, loud enough for her to hear. Her chest tightened. The walls seemed to lean in. She imagined herself small, insignificant, under the weight of every eye in the school. The assistant principal appeared in the corner, clipboard in hand. His gaze met hers, but he didn't intervene. He nodded toward the group of students like the audience to a show he was orchestrating. Jasmine's hands curled into fists inside her backpack straps. Why do they let this happen? She thought. Why doesn't anyone stop it? A tap on her shoulder made her jump. She turned to see Malik, her classmate. Concern etched across his face. You okay? He asked, low, careful. I'm fine, she said, forcing a tight smile. Malik studied her. You don't have to be. Her chest constricted. Relief mingled with fear. She wasn't alone, but standing up now could bring more scrutiny. As she walked, the whispers followed. She thinks she can just show up like that. Everyone saw, even the principal knows she's his mother's kid. The words hit her differently this time. Not just shame. Now fear. A microtwist of power awareness settled in her chest. People were talking. They knew. Some were jealous, some afraid, some just cruel. At her locker, she paused. Her mother's words replayed in her mind. You are more than their judgment. A sudden sharp voice cracked the hallway air. Jasmine. She froze. The principal appeared at the end of the hall, clipboard in hand, eyes narrow. Staff around him shuffled nervously, but he didn't care. His authority radiated like a physical force. Do you think you can just ignore what happened in my class? He barked. Malik stepped slightly forward. Jasmine didn't notice until now how tense he looked. She felt a flicker of courage. I didn't ignore it, Jasmine stammered. I'm trying to keep going. Trying. He spat the word like venom. Trying isn't enough. You're disrupting the environment. Everyone saw it. Don't think you're above the rules. Her knees shook. She wanted to shrink into the tile. Every whisper from the students now seemed louder, echoing in her skull. Rules. Jasmine thought, the rules don't apply the same to everyone. The injustice pressed against her chest, tight and unrelenting. She glanced toward the office, imagining her mother waiting, calm, controlled. She knows, Jasmine thought. She sees everything. The principal took a step closer, hands clenched at his sides. Students parted instinctively. He was a wall of authority, intent, and intimidation. Malik muttered under his breath, "This isn't right." But Jasmine didn't respond. She kept her eyes forward, counting steps, feeling the weight of every glance, every judgment, every unspoken rule pressed onto her shoulders. A sudden rumble in her stomach reminded her she had barely eaten. Tension tightened in her chest, but her gaze didn't waver. Then, another step. A teacher rounded the corner, eyes on Jasmine, and paused. She whispered something to another staff member. Jasmine caught a fragment. Principal overstepping again, report. Her heart skipped. Could someone finally act? Could someone speak up? The principal turned, scanning the hallway. Silence stretched. Every whisper died as if it sensed danger approaching. Malik's hand brushed hers, barely there, a subtle anchor in the storm. Jasmine's breath caught. She wasn't alone. The principal's office smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. Jasmine sat in the waiting chair, notebook clutched to her chest. Her legs bounced under the desk, a nervous rhythm she couldn't stop. Through the frosted glass, she could see her mother and the principal inside. Their voices were low, measured, but every word carried weight, tension, and power. "Do you realize how this looks?" her mother's voice said, calm but firm. "It's a misunderstanding," the principal replied, clipped, defensive. "She's young. Emotional. You humiliated her," her mother interrupted. "Publicly. Repeatedly. And you thought no one would notice." The principal's jaw tightened. "I enforce standards," he said. Standards. She didn't meet them. Her mother leaned back, eyes unblinking. Standards applied selectively, perhaps. But that's not discipline. That's abuse of authority. The principal shifted in his chair, uneasy. His confident posture wavered. I followed protocol. Protocol, her mother repeated, voice soft, dangerous. Do you think protocol justifies condescension? Fear? Silence. Jasmine's stomach twisted. She could hear every syllable like a hammer against glass. The walls felt smaller, the air thicker. A sigh. A pause. Then her mother's voice, sharper this time. You've intimidated her. You've manipulated the classroom. And you've shown your bias. Do you understand the consequences? The principal's fingers drummed against the desk, tight, restrained, like a caged animal. I didn't mean. Intent doesn't erase impact, her mother said. Calm authority filled the room like sunlight through a storm. Do you want this escalated? Because it will be. And I assure you, the school board will hear everything. Jasmine's chest tightened. She wanted to step inside, to speak, but her legs were frozen. Fear wrestled with relief. Her mother's presence was both shield and storm. Look, the principal said finally, voice low. I can address this quietly. No need for further exposure. Quiet. Her mother's tone sharpened. Quiet is complicity. Silence protects the wrongdoer, not the victim. If you value your career, you'll understand that. Immediately. Another pause. Jasmine could feel the room vibrating with unspoken tension. The assistant principal hovered in the corner, silent but alert. Even he seemed unsettled, unused to someone standing up like this. The principal rubbed his face, a brief flicker of panic in his eyes. And if I refuse? Then the board decides, her mother said simply. Calm, unyielding. A knock on the door startled Jasmine. The office assistant peeked in, clipboard in hand. Meeting at 3, sir? Yes, the principal muttered, still rattled. Jasmine's mother rose, smooth, deliberate. She placed a hand on Jasmine's shoulder, grounding her. Jasmine felt strength pulse through her. She wasn't just a target. She was seen, protected. The principal's eyes darted from mother to daughter. The veneer of control cracked. Authority, once absolute, wavered under scrutiny. Her mother's gaze softened slightly at Jasmine. It's going to be okay, she said. But there was a warning in her eyes. Justice would come, and it wouldn't be quiet. Jasmine exhaled slowly, letting a small piece of relief seep in. But the tension remained, a low hum in her chest. She knew the fight wasn't over. The whispers, the stares, the system itself still waited. The principal cleared his throat, standing reluctantly. I'll handle it. You'll handle it, her mother repeated. Yes. But know this, my daughter deserves respect. And I will not tolerate otherwise. Jasmine's heart pounded. She imagined the next few hours, the next few days, each one fraught with tension and fear. But now, she also imagined standing tall, fighting back. The morning bell rang like a warning. Jasmine's backpack felt heavier, loaded not with books but with tension. Every step down the hall pressed against her chest like a weight she couldn't shake. The principal was already at the classroom door, clipboard in hand, jaw tight. His presence radiated authority, rigid and immovable. The staff shuffled around him, uneasy but silent. Jasmine's classmates parted instinctively as she walked past. Jasmine, he said, voice low, controlled, sharp. Your seat has been moved. Front row. You will be under closer observation. The words landed like stones. She swallowed hard. Every eye on her felt like a verdict. Murmurs rippled through the room. Why me? She whispered to no one. You know why, he replied, cold, almost casual. Standards apply to everyone. Jasmine sank into her new seat, heart pounding. The teacher began the lesson, but the air had changed. Even the sunlight through the windows seemed harsher, sharper, exposing every shadow. A microtwist came mid-class. The principal leaned over a student nearby, lowering his voice. Jasmine couldn't hear the words, but she caught the tone, judgment. Bias. Fear carefully wrapped in authority. She glanced at Malik sitting across from her. His eyes were worried. He mouthed, stay calm. Every sentence from the principal now carried double weight. Each critique, each glance was amplified. The rules weren't just rules, they were tools of intimidation. During a group assignment, he walked the aisles like a predator. He paused at Jasmine's desk. Your handwriting's sloppy. Your answer's incomplete. You need to improve. Immediately, he said. The words dripped with authority, but the subtext was clear. I can make this worse if I want. She nodded silently, fingers clutching her pencil. The classroom was quiet except for the scratching of pens. Fear kept everyone disciplined. After class, whispers followed her to the hall. "Did you see how he stared at her?" One student said, eyes wide. "Yeah, like he's waiting for a mistake," another replied. The institutional bias wasn't subtle anymore. Every procedure, attendance, participation, homework collection, was now a tool to control her, to remind her she was under scrutiny. Jasmine felt the walls closing in. Lunch period brought a new tension. The principal appeared in the cafeteria, scanning tables with a piercing gaze. Students shifted uneasily, some moving their trays to avoid his path. Jasmine sat frozen, notebook tight against her chest. "You will be punctual, Jasmine," he said, standing over her table. "And your interactions will be monitored. Understand?" "Yes," she whispered, barely audible. Her stomach knotted. Every step felt like navigating a minefield. The world had shifted. The familiar hallways were now arenas, and every glance could ignite consequences. A teacher from another department passed by, casting her a sympathetic look. Jasmine caught the hint, a brief anchor in the storm. But it was fleeting. Then, a small micro-twist, her mother's assistant called. Jasmine's phone buzzed quietly. A message from her mother. "Keep notes. Everything. You're not alone." Relief surged mixed with fear. The principal's authority was still absolute in the moment, but the seed of exposure had been planted. Class ended. The bell rang, but the tension didn't lift. Every student seemed aware of the imbalance, of the rules bending differently for some. Jasmine walked to the locker, feeling the weight of the day pressing in. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. Justice doesn't come quietly. But it comes. The final bell rang, releasing students into the hall like a tide. Jasmine clutched her backpack strap, her eyes scanning for anything, that could anchor her after the day's storm. She spotted Malik near the lockers, shifting nervously, glancing toward the office. "You got the note?" he asked, voice low. Jasmine nodded, slipping it from her notebook. "Yes. Someone says they know the truth. But I don't know who." He frowned. "Be careful. This could backfire." "The principal," his gaze flicked down the hall. "He's already on edge. He's watching everything." Jasmine nodded. Fear mixed with hope. A new tension brewed. This was her chance, but danger lingered like a shadow. "Come on," Malik said. "There's someone I want you to meet. They might help." They moved through the hallway, weaving between groups of students whispering about the day's drama. Some glances were curious, others wary. Whispers followed them like a storm cloud. "She's getting attention now, watch what happens." "Think she's going to fight back." They reached the library. A woman stood at the end of the aisle, clipboard in hand. Professional, calm, with a notebook tucked under her arm. Jasmine's pulse jumped. "This is Ms. Carter," Malik whispered. "She's paying attention." Ms. Carter looked up. Her eyes were sharp, empathetic. "Jasmine, I've been watching. I see what's happening in your classroom. It's not right." Jasmine felt a spark of relief. You can do something?" "I can. And I will," Ms. Carter said, soft but firm. "But we need details. Dates times what was said. Everything." Malik added quietly. "There's also a journalist on campus. She's investigating patterns like this. I've spoken to her before. She might want to know too." Jasmine's stomach tightened. Exposure had always been dangerous. But now maybe it could be her weapon. A micro-twist, she could fight back, not alone this time. Later that afternoon, the journalist arrived. Mid-30s, professional casual, eyes curious, pen ready. "I hear there's a story here," she said. Her voice was gentle but probing. "I want to understand, Jasmine. Only what you're ready to share." Jasmine nodded, telling her story in short, sharp bursts. Dialogue dominated, but her thoughts interlaced between lines. The fear, the humiliation, the quiet rage building inside her. "And the principal?" the journalist asked. Jasmine faltered. "He makes you feel small, like your every move is wrong." The journalist scribbled notes, nodding. "This is important. People need to know." Another tension layered in. Exposure could bring justice, but also retaliation. Jasmine felt the weight. "Do you think he'll punish me if he finds out?" she whispered. Ms. Carter placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll be careful. You're not alone. But staying silent won't help." The principal's shadow loomed outside the library window. Jasmine caught a glimpse of his frown, the rigid posture, the aura of authority. Fear surged, he was still powerful. But now the balance was shifting. Malik squeezed her hand. "This is bigger than one class," he said. "You're not just fighting for yourself anymore." Jasmine's chest tightened with emotion. Resilience stirred, mingled with anxiety. She wasn't powerless. She had allies, and the truth could no longer be ignored. The school board room smelled of polished wood and faint coffee. Rows of chairs lined the room, filled with teachers, administrators, and a few curious students. Jasmine's mother led her in, calm and composed, yet the tension radiating from her was undeniable. "Jasmine, stay close," her mother whispered. "This is where the truth comes out." The principal sat at the head of the table, posture rigid, fingers drumming against the polished surface. His confidence was strained, held together by thin threads of authority. "Thank you for coming," the board president said, voice formal but observant. "We've heard there's a matter requiring attention." Her mother leaned forward. "It involves the treatment of my daughter, Jasmine, by the principal in her classroom. Repeated humiliation, intimidation, bias, abuse of authority." A murmur rippled through the room. Jasmine's heart thumped, a mix of anxiety and hope. Every eye on her, some sympathetic, others skeptical. The principal cleared his throat, a forced calm in his voice. "I followed protocol. Standards must be maintained." "Protocol does not include public shaming," her mother said firmly. "Every student deserves respect, yet Jasmine was singled out, belittled, and made to feel small." The board members exchanged glances. Some nodded, others scribbled notes. The room felt charged like electricity before a storm. Jasmine's voice caught. She had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, but now her words seemed fragile. He made me feel invisible," she whispered. "Like my efforts didn't matter. Like I didn't belong here." The principal shifted, attempting to regain control. "I was enforcing standards. That is my duty." Her mother interjected, calm but unwavering. "Enforcing standards does not give anyone the right to intimidate or humiliate. Evidence, including classroom notes, witness accounts, and documentation of repeated bias, has been collected." A hush fell. Ms. Carter, the teacher ally, stepped forward. "I've observed patterns. The principal's behavior isn't isolated. Other students have experienced similar treatment. It's systemic." The journalist handed over her report, pages filled with interviews and observations. The principal's frown deepened, the veneer of control cracking. This is exaggerated," he stammered, struggling to maintain authority. Jasmine's mother's eyes bore into him. "Exaggerated? You humiliated a child in front of her classmates. Every day. Do you realize the psychological impact? The fear you've instilled?" He avoided her gaze, eyes flicking to the board. Whispers among the staff indicated shifting loyalties. For the first time, the principal felt scrutiny, not compliance. A subtle micro-twist. One of the board members, previously silent, spoke up. "We take this seriously. Evidence shows abuse of power. Policy violations are clear." The principal's posture stiffened. Panic edged into his expression. I was only enforcing rules." "Rules," Jasmine's mother said, voice soft but cutting, "are meaningless when used as weapons. Respect is non-negotiable." Jasmine's heart pounded. Relief mingled with lingering fear. The power imbalance had shifted. The principal was exposed. Authority alone could no longer shield him. The board president spoke, voice calm but decisive. "We will investigate immediately. Measures will be taken to ensure fairness and accountability. The principal's conduct is under review." The room exhaled collectively. Students and staff who had been silent began to exchange glances, some nodding subtly in solidarity. The system that had seemed unbreakable now wavered. Jasmine felt a flicker of empowerment. Allies stood beside her, evidence in hand, truth on display. Fear still lingered, but hope had crept in like sunlight through clouds. As they left the board room, the principal remained seated, a man whose authority had faltered under scrutiny. Jasmine's mother placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You were brave," she said softly. "You spoke, you documented, and you didn't let fear control you." Jasmine nodded, emotions swirling. Fear, relief, pride, and a weight lifted just slightly. The battle was far from over, but the first victory had been claimed. The hallways felt smaller than ever. Each step Jasmine took echoed against lockers, her backpack pressing like a weight, both physical and emotional. The principal's shadow seemed to follow her, rigid and looming, as if the building itself had shifted to accommodate his authority. Jasmine. His voice cut through the chatter of students, clipped and sharp. She froze, every nerve on edge. Malik stayed close, silent, a grounding presence beside her. The principal approached, clipboard in hand, every step deliberate, a physical assertion of control. "Do you think this exposure makes you untouchable?" he said, low, menacing. Jasmine's pulse raced, but she held her ground. "No," she said firmly. I want to be treated fairly." "Fair?" He laughed, dry and bitter. "You speak as though fairness exists here for everyone." A teacher appeared from the doorway, Ms. Carter, her eyes meeting Jasmine's with quiet encouragement. Behind them, a few students lingered, whispers of support threading through the tension. "You're not alone," Ms. Carter said softly. "You never were." The principal's jaw tightened. He glanced around, realizing the crowd had shifted. Witnesses now outnumbered the isolated moments he had relied upon. Power, once absolute, was fracturing under scrutiny. "You think you can just turn the tables on me?" he spat. "Authority is mine here. Rules, protocols, they support me." "They support everyone," Jasmine replied, voice steady despite her racing heart. "Not just you. Not when you humiliate, intimidate, and show bias. That isn't authority. That's abuse." A tense silence followed. The students exchanged glances, some leaning in, others frozen. The principal's breathing was shallow. "You don't understand the consequences," he said finally, voice trembling. Jasmine shook her head. "I understand more than you think. Consequences aren't just about fear. They're about accountability. And you've crossed the line." Another micro-twist. The school's administrative assistant appeared, holding a folder thick with reports, notes, and witness statements. She stepped forward, placing the documents on a nearby table. "These are records of repeated incidents," the assistant said. "Every comment, every intimidation tactic has been documented. Staff and students alike have contributed." The principal's eyes widened. For the first time, the armor of authority cracked visibly. He backed up a step, unsure how to respond. Jasmine's mother entered the hall, calm but firm, eyes scanning the scene. "This isn't personal," she said. "It's about justice. And it's about ensuring no student experiences what my daughter did." The principal swallowed hard. The crowd felt larger, the scrutiny sharper. Even the students who had avoided Jasmine now watched, absorbing the shift in power. "Do you see what you've created?" her mother asked. "Fear, distrust, silence, and now exposure. Do you still want to claim authority?" He opened his mouth but found no words. The tension pressed like a physical force against him. Jasmine felt a surge of relief, tempered with lingering fear. The confrontation wasn't just verbal, it was symbolic. The imbalance that had oppressed her was now visible to everyone. Malik leaned closer, whispering, "You're stronger than you know." "Yes," Jasmine thought, chest tight but steady. "I won't let him win." The principal finally stepped back, defeated, shoulders sagging. His power, once wielded with ease, was stripped bare by truth, witnesses, and courage. A few students exhaled audibly, relief threading through their own tension. They had seen injustice challenged. Jasmine's mother placed a hand on her shoulder, nodding subtly. "Stand tall. You've done what many fear to do. Now watch how truth moves." The morning sun slanted through the classroom windows, casting long lines across polished floors. Jasmine walked in, backpack lighter than usual, though the weight of the past weeks still pressed on her chest. The principal was absent. Rumors spread quickly, suspension, review, even talks of reassignment. Students whispered quietly, eyes flicking toward Jasmine. Some nodded, a few avoided her gaze. The atmosphere had shifted. Authority no longer meant fear, it meant accountability. Her mother waited at the front of the class, calm and poised. She caught Jasmine's eye and smiled, a subtle mix of pride and relief. "Morning," Ms. Carter greeted quietly, giving Jasmine a thumbs up. "Morning," Jasmine replied softly, a tremor of confidence in her voice. The classroom felt different, lighter, more open. Yet Jasmine knew the emotional cost lingered. Fear had shaped her steps, whispered in her mind during every tense interaction. But now resilience filled those spaces. Later, the school board released their official statement. The principal's conduct was deemed a violation of both policy and ethical standards. Mandatory sensitivity training, formal reprimand, and oversight measures were enacted. Accountability had arrived. Jasmine read the notice aloud in her room, feeling the words resonate in her chest. Justice was not revenge. It was acknowledgement, correction, and transparency. She exhaled, relief mingled with the residual sting of humiliation. At lunch, Malik met her in the courtyard. "Looks like things are changing," he said, leaning against a tree. "Yes," Jasmine replied. "But it's complicated. I feel proud and tired and sad." "Trauma has weight," Malik said softly. "And pride doesn't erase the cost." She nodded. The truth settled in her chest. Justice had consequences, psychological scars, anxiety, the constant vigilance, but also resilience, allies, and empowerment. Later that week, the journalist stopped by, notebook in hand. "You handled this bravely," she said, voice warm. "People need to hear your story. It can change things." Jasmine looked down at her notebook, then up at her mother. "I didn't do this alone," she said. "And it's not just me. Others, they see it now." Her mother's hand rested on her shoulder. "Never forget," she said, "speaking up is strength. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it." The principal returned briefly, summoned for a final review. His steps were measured, authority diminished, eyes avoiding Jasmine's. He offered a curt nod, and Jasmine nodded back, not with fear but acknowledgement. The balance had shifted. Ms. Carter passed by, whispering, "You've inspired more than you know." Jasmine smiled faintly, feeling the weight of that truth. The hallways, once battlegrounds, now carried quiet hope. Conversations among students hinted at empathy, awareness, and subtle shifts in culture. The ripple effect had begun. That evening, Jasmine sat by her window, writing in her notebook. Her thoughts were scattered, fear, sadness, resilience, and pride, but the narrative had changed. She had witnessed injustice, endured it, and seen the system respond. The final reflection: justice is neither instantaneous nor perfect. It carries costs, leaves scars, but also lights paths for others. She knew the battle for fairness would continue, small moments, microaggressions, subtle bias. But she had learned that exposure, courage, and allies could tip the balance. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "Resilience is quiet, but it is unstoppable." Jasmine closed her notebook. She felt the tension in her chest ease. Fear still lingered, but it no longer controlled her. She had faced humiliation, witnessed authority abused, and survived. She had spoken, and the world had listened. A final cinematic beat. Sunlight fell across her face, warm, forgiving. A deep inhale. Exhale. Balance, justice, and reflection. A bittersweet victory, carrying both scars and strength. Jasmine smiled faintly. "I won't forget, but I will move forward."